this is the reason why we started this group. So I met Stephen strictly through Westbank Real Estate Investors by way of Aussie Steve, right? And what I appreciate about Stephen, first of all, just his multifaceted business by being a broker, a property owner, investor, and on top of that, having a property management company. I have empathy for any entrepreneur, which is the bulk of us in the room. So for him to wear that many hats and still have his sanity, I appreciate that. Then also his approach to the unique niche of property management, his approach with managing a team with his brokerage, I also appreciate that the most. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Steve. He's going to tell us a story, walk us through the systems and processes. Everybody put your hands together. Stephen Leonard.
So I can start by telling y'all how I got involved, and it was really my father had real estate back around the late 90s, or early 90s, I should say. I started getting into it myself. I was kind of his right-hand guy, and when there was work to be done, we would go out and take care of it. We started buying together, I guess, around 2001. And then around 2005, I think there was a little storm, some people may remember. We lost about 4, maybe 5 properties at the time, and that was kind of, I guess, a wake-up call that he was like, I'm done, I'm out. We sold everything. And then I was getting my license and watching everybody buy their own property. I was one of those buyer agents trying to help them. We were doing the investing, and I was doing a little bit of property management, and figured time to get back into it. So I guess around 11 or 12, me and one partner started buying property, and then I met another partner, and we ramped it up. And at one point, about a year ago, we were a little around close to about maybe 120, 130 doors.
Quick question, Steve.
Yep.
So, because you're moving real fast, but I know there's some important pieces in there, right? So during Katrina,
Yep.
Were you full-time at this time, or what else were you doing during just ownership of real estate with the family?
No, well, so Katrina, yes, I was full-time at that point. When I got into real estate full-time, I had just gotten off the river. I mentioned to you. I used to be a shipping company where we brought in the bulkers and tankers. My last gig on the river was bringing in Royal Caribbean and Norwegian cruise lines. It was just too many hours. It was a 40-hour work week, and then a 16-hour Saturday, 14-hour Sunday, and then they wanted you to still work the 40-hour work week. And it was just too many hours. I had 2 little kids at the time, and that was when I realized time to get into real estate full-time.
Gotcha. So
And that was around 2001.
So what did the transition look like from full-time to full-time in the real estate on the river?
Prior to that, I was doing mostly buying and selling for friends and family. Probably doing about 15 sales a year, which wasn't a whole lot for me. When I jumped in full-time, it was I moved to an investment company. They were managing, I guess, around 850 doors. And I picked up a portfolio when I joined them of about 150 doors.
Management or ownership?
That was management.
Okay.
That was management. So I was strictly a manager at that point, and just before Katrina, I had bought my first double, and we had the stuff that my father and I had, and this was right at the back door of Central Lockup. Needless to say, that was one of the properties that went underwater, and had to fight the insurance company because they said they didn't have insurance, even though we had a mortgage, so we played with that a little bit. But that was kind of the breaking point. We got rid of a bunch of properties. It was a good move for me at the time to get rid of properties. We put a lot of cash in the bank. It was a need my wife and I had at the time. And so we were happy. And like I said, we moved around 13 is when we started buying again.
I'm glad you said that. From your professional opinion, especially as a property manager, when do you think it is a good time to liquidate? Because some people feel like if I build a portfolio, I need to keep it and grow it and grow it and grow it. But it sounds like you kind of got a better feel to where you can liquidate, grow. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, if the crystal ball is clean, we can predict the future, which nobody can. For me, it was just the storm. You know, pretty much every property we had a lot of damage. The ones in Orleans Parish were completely underwater. So for me, it was kind of just a simple answer from me. I didn't want to have to go through the renovations. I was dealing with the doors I was managing for other people at the time, and that kind of took priority for me. So I was able to sell them, and you know, again, we were happy with that. It wasn't a prediction. It wasn't something that we looked at the market and said, okay, now's the time to do it. I mean, in my opinion, it's not a prediction, but my opinion would be 22 is probably going to be a kind of a bubble year. Mm-hmm. In late 22, I was thinking personally early 22, but they keep funneling money. So I think it's going to be end of 22, maybe early 23 is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. What's the biggest takeaway you learned about insurance from Katrina? We just went through Ida. A lot of people still going, a lot of landlords, investors, and regular owners going through insurance. So what did you learn from Katrina that kind of helped you be more prepared?
Don't trust them.
Trust who?
Don't trust the insurance agent.
Okay.
Not the insurance agent, the insurance adjusters. Document. You know, stay on top of it. Make sure you have your claim number, which property address. With the doors we manage, both for clients and for ourselves, it's, you know, the biggest problem is they don't put property addresses. They work on claim numbers, so you've got to have the claim number associated with the property address. We keep that together, so when we reference a property or email them, it's, you know, we're putting the property address as well as the claim number. It tends to help, I find, get a quicker response. But they have to have the correct address, email address, because we've been sitting on 5 properties waiting on checks, and come to find out they've been sending it to the wrong email address, and of course it was a e-check by email, so we just got that the other day, and that's like $60,000 on a few properties that we've just been sitting here waiting to work on. And of course, zero apology, but you know, we got the money. It's moving along. So I think documentation, document with your properties, with your adjusters, because they're never going to give you what you need to do the renovation the first time. You're going to have to go back with a supplemental. Prime example for me is I've got a double, roof came off, everything flooded, tenant sent pictures the date of the storm, 2 inches of water inside the house. Hey, we're sorry, you're gonna have to vacate. We gutted the place, and they didn't count kitchens and bathrooms because the guy saw the cabinets. Well, they were there. Yeah, but the water didn't stop there. It flooded them as well. So, you know, there's gonna be a big supplemental. They didn't count air conditions in most of the units that had roof damage or roofs come off. So we're having our AC guys go in service, because if the water's pouring through the ceiling and the sheetrock, lo and behold, the AC is inside the house. So that's another one that, you know, big supplementals.
And what's the supplemental? How you describe it?
Supplemental is the things that they didn't catch, or difference in amount. You know, some of the adjusters we had, the roof is easy to explain. The roofs, you know, pre-storm were $300 to $350 a square. Right now, after the storm, they're $400 to $450. Some adjusters are giving you $330 per square. I mean, it's like, if you can find me people doing $330 a square, I will use them all day long. So a supplemental would be us providing them the receipt saying, our roofers were $440 or $450 or $420, whatever it is. You gave me $350. I need the difference of 20 squares. This is what I'm looking for. Or the service of the air conditioner, or the replacement of the kitchen cabinets. And the other thing is, again, along with documentation, pictures. Pictures go a long way. You know, before, during, after. You know, they're going to want to see that, you know, yeah, the cabinets were damaged at the base. Yeah, they had water damage. Water sat in it, you know, for a couple days after the tenant moved out, or before we got there to sweep it out. So those are things that, you know, they've got the pictures, but we've taken our own pictures, and we'll provide that with the supplementals.
Yeah. So I just want to go back to the period of time during Katrina. So you guys liquidated. What was next after that?
Simply working as a real estate agent. It was managing the 150 doors at the other company, and helping people buy and sell property. And you know, my special knack, or what I feel was a special knack, was, you know, just being able to identify property, run the numbers, to make sense. And you know, a lot of people can do that. It's nothing special that I'm doing, but you know, when we walk a property for a buyer, or when we were walking properties for buyers, we can walk through, give you a suggestion, and we're not a contractor, and this isn't legal advice or main suggestion or how to do it, but I mean, at the end of the day, we'll walk through, and we're usually close to what we think the renovation will cost, so that it gives us a better way to run the numbers once we walk through. We know what the purchase or the sale price is, or what they're asking. We can look at the tax, insurance, you know, what the mortgage will be. We know what the renovation should be, or thereabout. We have a target of what the rent should be, and we just run our numbers on the buy and hold.
Yeah. So, out of all of the niches in real estate, how do you pick property management?
I think it's because my family had them before, and it was just something I grew up dealing with a little bit. I mean, some people grow up in it really heavy. I did not. It was, you know, my father was a banker his whole life, and you know, I worked the river most of my early working years. But real estate was always something that I enjoyed. You know, it's one of those things that I can, you know, I hate to read. I'm one of those non-readers, but I can pick up a real estate book and not put it down until I'm done. And give me a novel and throw it away. It's something it's not me. But real estate, I mean, I can talk for hours. Not that we're going to do that, but you know, I can. You know, but it's just one of those things that I enjoy. And other people enjoy it as well, whether they're involved today or whether they're trying to get involved.
And from your experience, what's been a common misconception of what the public think the job of their property manager is?
I would say the misconception of the property manager specifically would be that if there's a price you want, we're going to get it. Sometimes we'll try, sometimes it's not going to happen. I mean, we will. I'm kind of the mindset that I'm not going to tell you no unless it's completely out of the ballpark, and then we just may not accept the business. But I mean, at the point that we might be a few $100s or a couple $100s off, we'll give it a shot. I tell my clients, let's have an understanding that if it's not going to rent and we don't have activity in the first, you know, 30 days or less, you've got to tell me what the requirement is. It's, you know, because you know what your financials are better than I would say 30 days or less, we want to do a reduction. Some owners will say, I don't want to do any more than 10 days. Some will say, I want 60 days. I'll do whatever you want. It's your money. You know, at the end of the day, we're your manager. We're trying to achieve what you want, and we're going to give you the best guidance, or what we believe to be the best guidance. So I think that's the biggest misconception. The biggest misconception in general, I think, of not property managers, but property owners and landlords in general, is that we're those rich people that can do anything. You know, we're here to put everybody out. We're the bad guy. I mean, you know, for me, it's I want to give you a good, livable property that you pay for. I mean, if you can't pay, then you shouldn't be there. I don't want to put you out, but at the end of the day, I've got bills just like anybody else. And that was the one thing I noticed with COVID that a lot of the general public said, which is it's an investment. There's a risk. Yeah, there's an inherent risk with the rental property, but in normal times pre-COVID, I could predict a lot of my risk. It's not like buying a Renoir or something like that, where somebody can come steal it, burn up in a house or something like that. I knew that, hey, if they don't pay the rent, I know what my timeline is to do what I have to either give them more time, make a promise to pay, work things out, or put them out, and that was completely stopped. And so I didn't have any predictions. That, you know, we told a lot of owners, we don't know. Right. The government's in control right now. There's nothing we can do legally to stop this. And so we were all in the same boat. You owned a rental property and you had a tenant who didn't pay or wouldn't pay full rent, and there was nothing you could really do other than try to work with them. And that's what we did. And we did pretty well with it. I mean, we had a few tenants who did not want to pay and just flat out refused, wouldn't answer calls, wouldn't answer texts. We put notices on the door, give us a call, we're just trying to get in touch with you. Hey, we want to make sure you're alive even. We had maybe 3 out of 220, 215 doors that just flat out didn't call. So as soon as the opportunity came, yeah, we put you out.
Yeah.
The ones who talked, hey, I lost my job, but I can pay this. Okay, look, we will take what you can pay us. We're not uncaring. We care. I mean, and most of my owners agreed with us because, you know, when we're a third-party manager on my properties, I can do what I want. Third-party management, we had to go to the owner to get their approval. Do you want us to work with these people? If you say no, understand, you probably won't get any money. And I think I had one owner who just adamantly said, I want the money. Good luck, here you go. I can't help you. But every other owner was like, yeah, I mean, try to do what you can, work with them. I mean, we had a couple of owners who said, just tell them don't pay me 3 months. Let's see where it happens or where it goes.
Yeah.
So it worked out. And I think a lot of tenants that we worked with were appreciative of that.
So at 150 doors right after Katrina, at this time, how are you rebuilding your portfolio?
We're doing, so I wasn't, the 150 doors after Katrina were managed properties. A lot of those took a lot of water as well. I can remember looking at a property on Martin Luther King and wooden floors. The guy had hand-built these properties himself. Wood floors were basically to the ceiling. It was crazy. But for me personally, rebuilding, starting in like 13, it was, you know, just slow going. Looking for owner financing, didn't want to use what little cash we had up front. Owner financing, bond for deeds, give me some time to get in, do the renovations if it's necessary, let me get it re-rented, kind of the burst strategy where, you know, we go in, fix it up if it needs it. But bond for deed was our big thing. Weird story, on the first pair of doubles, my first partner and I bought, deal was made, bond for deed, you guys can own finance, it was inheritance, he had 3 family members, he was in charge, they didn't want anything to do with it. He said, I'll own finance it. The day before closing was a Sunday, we're closing on a Monday, he calls and says, I just don't know where I'm making money on this. Well, other than the sale, you're getting a little bit of interest. I just don't see it, I'm not gonna finance it. Dude, I've got my cash, we're ready to close. Don't worry about it, I'm gonna get my bank to do the finance for you. In a day, no problem. We did close on a Monday. That Monday, we did close, and we actually closed with, at the time it was Whitney. The president of the bank was his friend, who he called his banker. He called my attorney and said, yeah, we're good to close, I'm gonna fund the money. Give me your routing information. Wired money over. For 3, maybe 4 months, I kept saying, do you have a loan number? I need to pay some interest, I want to pay some principal, I want to do something here. I mean, I know you're going to hit me with a big note at some point. And 4 months later, he sent me the loan docs, I went in, signed everything, and started paying then. It was the weirdest thing I've ever dealt with.
Yeah. So I know some people know what a bond for deed is, but how do you describe what a bond for deed is?
To me, a bond for deed is owner financing without transfer of title.
Mm-hmm.
That's my simple take on it. I'm sure lawyers would say maybe a little different or add a little more to it, but to me, that's the simplistic part of it. You get to buy a property, put a little money down. That owner does the bond for deed typically because they have a mortgage in place, so they can't transfer the title without a due on demand clause typically being triggered. Some start seeing subject twos now, and I have not done that, but I believe that's similar. Attorneys can tell me otherwise because I don't know. But it's a come up with a payment rate, interest, file it at the courthouse through the attorney. We actually sit down, do a closing, and usually there's a 6-month, 12-month, 18, whatever it is, many months down the line, balloon payment. I do no prepayment penalties. That way I can refinance early if I need to and be done with the bond for deed. But we've gotten to a point where we don't do as many bond for deeds unless they just absolutely want to, which I'm okay with. That's usually less money out of my pocket.
Yeah.
And I can do more deals.
How did you set up those conversations with the owners back then? I know Katrina, a lot of properties were still damaged,
Yeah.
so it was a little bit easier. So how were those conversations to get those owner finance deals, especially if they weren't advertising the MLS as owner will finance?
A lot of times it's, you either have a relationship with them, like some of my older managed clients, and they would like, I just want to get rid of something, I don't know what to do, it's in disrepair, I don't have insurance. And, we would make an offer and tell them, I've got interest, but I don't have, you're gonna ask 50,000 or whatever. I don't have that 50,000, but hey, I've got 5 or 10, I can put that down, use the rest of my cash to do renovation. And then once I have it rented, usually within a few months, I can go to the bank and get my refinance and pay you off. And you're okay with that. A couple of people have, no, I just want my cash, I want to be done, I'm out of here. Some are, let's see how this will work out, and then it's just really a matter of explaining how it plays out. Sometimes they want to call the attorney or the law office and say, is this legit? I mean, can I really do this? And yeah. But to me, a bond for deed was always my easy way into a property if they would agree to any sort of terms when you didn't have all the cash to just flat out buy it.
Yeah.
It was just an easy way.
And what's I know it's an excellent strategy on the buy side, but from what you're saying also, how is it benefit as an owner to do a bond for deed?
To some owners, when I was doing more selling, I would always pique the owner's interest with letting them know. We can put the property out for say $150,000, and yeah, we can sit back and wait for a buyer to come along, and if they've got their financing and they do their inspections and everything else. And for me, it was just another avenue. It opens the doors that if you are willing to do some sort of owner financing as a seller, you can get a larger buying pool. Because there are people that, they go through a divorce. So now you've got husband and wife, they split up. He did nothing wrong or she did nothing wrong. The other one racked up a lot of debt. So their credit is shot, one or the other, both of them actually, but they've got a good paying job. So they can put down a nice chunk of money. They can't qualify for a loan because of what the other spouse did. This is an avenue to get them back into a property, and that was always my thought and vision, is that if you can see that and understand it and accept that by marketing it, at least through an agency and an MLS, it definitely brings in more buyers who typically won't be able to qualify. They might be looking for a rental, now they're looking for that, for a bond for deed. But in today's market, the way things are going, they don't sit long. So people are not looking for those other options. They're just looking for the cash right now, I suppose.
I think that's a great answer, and I want to add the interest also. So you can also turn around and be an investment, because everything's negotiable with a bond for deed. You can add interest and the balloon payment and all that type of stuff.
So it's if the market is a few years back was 4%, 5%, an owner financing bond for deed deal, they may do 7, 8, 9%. Again, it's all negotiable. When after doing some of these creative deals classes with people in Tampa, it's the question is, I can do 300 payments. You don't talk interest. Let them bring up the interest.
Equal payments, 300
That's
equal
it.
payments.
That's it. You taking some of the classes.
Yeah.
So it's more of a mindset now. Just trying to structure your deal the best way you have to. If you don't have the cash, figure out a subject to, figure out a bond for deed, what you can afford to put down, and then start looking and talking.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're starting to get some traction. Back then, 150 managed doors, you're growing your portfolio, using bond for deed as one of those go-to strategies. What's some of the growing pains of growing that portfolio?
So year one, we had the 2 doubles, one partner, a friend of mine, he had a stash of cash, and he said, man, I'd love to do what you and your buddy are doing. So I said, okay, how much you want to invest? And at the time, it was, I think, $200,000, okay. Let's go looking. And he's a lender, he's a commercial lender, and he's got the understanding of real estate. We bought a few properties, bought a few more, and the growing pain for me was keeping up with the properties, because he was helping to recycle the cash as fast as possible, which we're good with. In 1 year, I think we ramped up and bought like 27 or 28 properties, one being a 24 unit. That was a rough year, just onboarding all the properties, getting any work that needed to be done. If they were rented, onboarding the tenants into the system, making sure we had leases in place, making sure rents are being collected, doing the normal management stuff, but just the onboarding was the biggest hurdle. And at that time, it was only a couple of us. Now we're 4 people, just on the operations side, and we've got accounting on the backside. So it becomes a little bit easier, because the accounting will also help us with the onboarding of the properties and the tenants.
Right.
So,
Tell us a little bit more about what you mean by onboarding, especially when like that 24 unit. Take us back and describe what you mean by onboarding and the operations.
So for the onboarding, one, you got to onboard the property. And that's essentially just getting details, put it in the software that we use to track the properties, track the units, track our tenants. Then it's knocking on 24 doors. Hey, we understand your leases, through this day. We see you pay this much rent. We were told you're in arrears, this much money. If we can't get you, start paying, we'd like to work something out. And basically the onboarding is tracking all that, getting all that input into the software so that it will help us track some of that. But the long and short was at one point on those 24 doors, I think we were like 9 occupied. We booted everybody else out because they just weren't paying. When we took it on, the Jefferson Parish Police, they were happy because the former owner didn't do anything. I mean, they would call and say, hey, we just had a shooting. Okay, why'd you call me? We had lights to the property, we had security cameras. I mean, if you told us they were a problem, we'd watch the cameras. We saw drug dealing, we'd let them know. We'd let the tenant know, hey, we got you on camera, we need you to leave now. So we went down to 9 or 10 occupied, and that was a painful time when you got insurance, taxes, mortgage, and you're trying to do repairs because they didn't take care of it very well. And you're trying to turn these units around, and the previous guy, lots of deferred maintenance, as you can imagine. So it was a big headache, but after a couple of years, we had it sustained, we had it better, the police were happy, they weren't getting called out there every other day, it was more like every couple of weeks. It was a good learning curve, and I never say never, but y'all do larger management property, so I don't do 24 units anymore today. The largest we have right now is the 7-plex that we bought that we're renovating to, we're not sure, sell it or put it back in portfolio. But we're not looking for 24 unit management anymore.
Yeah. So I'm glad you said that. So the cash flow crunch that I can only imagine that you guys went through. How did you guys manage that bleeding of cash on the back end with deferred maintenance and low occupancy? How did you guys get through that part?
The lucky part was we had cash in the bank. I mean, we prepared for it. I mean, we knew what was happening. We had a handful of programs. We had some people paying their rent. So we started stockpiling cash, and we kind of knew, okay, we're going to get to a point. I mean, I know as a manager, I'm getting tired of going out there. He's not going out there, and I knew that. I mean, there were a couple of nights we'd get a call, and hey, the police are here. We jump on the camera. Hey, the police are down, so run over there. Midnight, we'd get a call and alert us. So we were going over there whenever the police showed up, and some of that was, selfishly wanting to bring the keys to open the door so they didn't kick the door in. But it was we prepared for it. So we knew months in advance. So every dime we didn't disperse. We paid what we had to. We didn't do any other special work because we knew we were going to be coming to a cash crunch. So we knew we could turn so many units. We knew we needed so much to pay the mortgage, and we knew we needed at least 5 months to do that. And that's kind of our savings was that we just started putting away.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you said it that way. So what's your advice to investors that want to buy portfolios or want to buy those 20+ unit complexes? Like, how can you advise them to prepare the way you did on the front end? What's your advice?
Hire a manager. Whether it's me or anybody else, again, we don't do the larger. I mean, if it's a bunch of singles, yeah, we'll talk. It's a larger unit. Talk to Emile. He's got some connections there. But for preparing for it, it's really knowing what you're getting into. I mean, it sounds sexy. Hey, I'm getting 20 doors. And it's all one location. It sounds great, and in some cases it is. Cash flow, usually lower income. You're on the programs. Some people get afraid of low income or programs. Those are some of the nicest people, and they just want a clean place. It's like any life that you walk through today, whether you're in a big neighborhood, low neighborhood, you're going to have riffraff running anywhere. And some of the riffraff that we had to boot out of there were the ones that were taking advantage of the other tenants. And we know we lost a couple of tenants because we couldn't move fast enough. I mean, when we took over, and I know I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit, but when we took over, some of the people, they would call you and say, we don't want anybody to know, but we don't like number 5 and number 9. Keep an eye on them. And so when we had the cameras, that was easy. Okay, we just log in and start watching them doors. And you would see the traffic in and out, in and out. Well, by the time we were able to save the money to do what we had to, some of those good tenants that were reporters to us, they were gone. But I mean, prepare, have a bank account set up, have somebody that's maybe gone through it, you know, and you know, have them on board at least giving you advice. You know, if you're going to self-manage, be prepared. Have some sort of system in place. I mean, our software does a lot for us.
What software are you using?
We use Rent Manager. We can text through it. We can email through it. It does call record if you're part of the program. It tracks the rents. It'll post the late fees. I mean, so it does a lot for us as a company. We had that at the time, which was part of our onboarding of getting them in the software. If we didn't have that, it would have been a lot harder. I mean, if you're a mom and pop, like I was early on when I first started Pelican Realty, it was, you know, pen and paper, Excel, you know, hand making statements to owners, typing it out. I mean, it looked pretty, but it was all manualized. That takes a lot, you know. But systems are a great thing, and you know, stick to the system. You know, fair housing does not like when you stray from your process and systems.
Yeah.
You know?
So tell us about once your portfolio peaked, because I think everybody in the room has goals, right?
Sure.
And they feel like once I get to $50, $100, $150, what was it like once you peaked at the top of your portfolio? Was it as easy as you had in mind? Or?
I think it was easy. I mean, when we got to that peak, I mean, we were in the 130, 140, up in that, close to 150. I don't think we hit the 150, but you know, we sold 50 doors, and that was, I won't say a selfish move, but it was definitely a splitting of the partnerships. 24 was one partner, 26 was another partner, and after that, it was the cash we made. It helped me buy out the remaining partner I had, so that was helpful. And then we sold a few extra doors after that, and that kind of solidified the split of us. And it was really, he didn't want to deal with the real estate. He didn't want any of the property, because the goal for me was you take your half, I'll take my half, whether it's a value split or a rental income split. But for me, it was our lowest value property, I guess I want to say. Higher cash flow, but most headache. So 80% of my office was spent on these properties, these doors, than the rest. And so it was easy for me to just say, let's get rid of these. And so we dropped to a low number, and we just slowly been, with the help of wholesalers, slowly buying. And you know, everybody will set a target. I know I've got a couple clients who have set targets, and you know, the thought is, man, if I hit that target, why stop?
Mm-hmm.
If you can continue recycling your cash, there's probably no reason to stop, you know?
If you have a good property manager.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, like, so we, as an investor, we are solidified to the metro area. Most of our stuff is on the West Bank. We've got 1 or 2 doors on the East Bank now. We've ventured over there, and for me, it was a good move. It's in Jefferson, near Ochsner Hospital, and I would like to buy more over there. So if there's any wholesalers in the area looking that way, keep me in mind. But we've actually started looking at Mississippi as well. The goal of moving out of state for a possible investment as well as that I won't manage it. I'll see how another management company operates. I'll just be the investor, and some of that is hard for me to do, letting go. As an investor, you know, it's hard for a client when they turn management over to let go and tell the tenant when they call them, you know, at 8 o'clock at night, call the management company. I'm no longer involved. I want to try that in something that I'm not dealing with, and that's, you know, why I didn't want to do anything here. So we looked at some stuff in Mississippi, and we think we're going to try it. We'll see what happens, but I've never invested out of my metro area. I've always been able to drive by my personal properties within an hour or less, and that's something a lot of people will tell new investors. I mean, be able to drop by your property. I mean, you do, as an investor, you know, you got to trust your manager, which a lot of people do, and they do entrust me with a lot of responsibility, which is great. But I also want those investors that will drive by their properties. You know, there may be something we don't see at a time when somebody drives by one of my office, you know, drives by and you know, hey, a branch may be leaning a little lower than when we drove by. And they may say, hey, it's almost touching, it's not touching. For me, we got a little time. The owner may say, just get it turned up, let's be done. You know, those are the reasons why I always want my investors to be a little involved, but day to day, I mean, that's what we're there for. You know, most of my investors, you know, they sign the papers, they turn things over, and if we talk to them, it's because we engage them because there's a major problem. You know, we've got a reserve in our management agreement that if there's a problem, we can spend this much money. If there's an emergency, we can do a little above that, but you know, we're typically going to call you if it exceeds our approval. After some time, some of my owners will call back and say, call me if it burns down. You know, don't bug me, just as long as the checks are coming, I'm good. So that's kind of where we want our clients to get to eventually, and that's where I would want to get if I end up buying in Mississippi is call me if it burns down. Otherwise, you're my go-to person. You know? That's again where we want our clients. We want them to have that trust and belief in us, and we try to give that to them.
All right. But we're about to wrap up. We're going to take some questions out from the audience, but I definitely want to ask you. You mentioned partnerships. Yep. So I know in other aspects, it's kind of more black and white. So in wholesale, we do a JV, it's kind of black and white, 50-50. If you're doing a flip, black and white, 50-50. What did you learn with a partnership with owning a multifamily?
I mean, so for my partnerships, they were strictly money. They didn't do any day-to-day. They didn't come to the office. They didn't drop the properties. They didn't get involved in the turnarounds or make-readies or anything. But we had a nice partnership. It was drafted on paper. We had an LLC. We've been slowly getting away from that portion of it, mainly because for me with a partnership, it's where we were on an LLC together. Partnership was them wanting to call and get involved at times. And like one of my partners, he has no inkling of real estate. He is a government agent, lives overseas, and you know, at times he has nothing but time in his hand, like a lot of government employees. And so he would send me properties and say, what about this? What about that? No, I've already seen that. No, I've already looked at no, that's no good. This doesn't make sense. And I felt bad always telling him no, whereas my other partner that was earlier on, he was a banker, he knew real estate, he found some good deals, we ramped up that 1 year, but then he wanted out. And that was one of the selling points. But you know, the black and white is, I mean, if you're gonna do a partnership, put it in writing. I will say, I know I've got a couple of partners have lent money, we don't have anything in writing, there's a lot of trust there. One that I grew up with, and you know, knock on wood, it's so far it's working. We're in a flip. Another one we've done, I'll say a joint venture, again, not on paper, but you know, he holds title, I'm doing the renovation cost. So I mean, there is some cost splits there. So it's you know, when I run out of money, you look for investors. You know, when you're waiting on a refi or recycle of cash, you know, sometimes my lender doesn't move as fast as I'd like to. So you got to find more lenders, more investors.
One more thing before we take questions. Sure. Share a story about the reverse burglary.
So one of our clients, he can say his name. He is here. Steve in the back. There you go. So we were turning a unit. The tenant had just moved out or recently moved out. We're turning a unit. It completed on Friday. We started marketing it on Friday. Our loan guy was there on a Sunday, I believe it was. Hey, the door got kicked in or whatever. So grab the gun, run over, not sure who you're going to come across. We show up. There's a blow-up mattress, box radio, maybe a little box of food and drinks or a bag or whatever. We figured homeless person, okay, pop the bed, throw it all in the trash can, put it all out, change the lock, We don't have an extra lock for the back door, so we break keys off in it. We'll get the locksmith back out there, rekey everything the next day. And I'm lucky that I meet the tenant or the owner next door. He's got cameras. I'm like, hey, we've turned out all the lights. We've changed the locks. If anybody shows up or you see lights on, give me a call. Gave him my business card. Of course, go meet up with some friends. We're hanging out. It's about 10:15, 10:30 at night. I don't know who that is. Sunday, 10:30. It's got to be. Hello? Hey, man, didn't you say you turned all the lights on? Yeah, I'm on my way. Grab the gun, head on out. Dude, we open the door, and the house is full of stuff. Somebody literally moved their stuff in. There's TVs, sofas, beds, frames, mattresses. You name it, they moved their apartment in. Here's my bash on NOPD. Start calling them at 11:15. They showed up at around 12 the next day. After we kept calling, hey, we called you 2 hours ago, and we're still here. Yes, we're still here, waiting on these people to show back up. Our labor shows up to start moving all this stuff out. In my opinion, this is trash. There's no eviction necessary. It's been there less than 24 hours. They show up, run home, I'm gonna change, clean up, run back. We're there, 12 o'clock, we're just hanging out. Locksmith is there, locks are changed. Back door actually got pried open, wrought iron. You can actually see it bent halfway down because they had to get back in. Long and short, a lady shows up and she just starts screaming. All her stuff's on the street. I don't understand Spanish, I'm sorry, but she's screaming. My laborer's like, dude, she's pissed. That's all her stuff. Okay. We call 911. Hey, we've been calling you since 11 o'clock last night. The lady who broke in and entered and put all her stuff in, she's here. She said to put on the property. My job is to protect the property. So, needless to say, 4 NOPD show up very quick. They want to know when the last time we visited the property. This is where, again, I'll bash NOPD. They're trying to blame me that I might have to do an eviction to put her out. And so, one of the officers that shows up says, when were you last here? 10 o'clock last night, when we called you the first time. No, before that. 3 o'clock when they broke in the first time. We came out and changed the locks. Yeah, I know, but before that, Friday when we came to take marketing pictures because it just got finished. So you were here Friday. Yeah, it's been 2 days. They broke in twice. Okay, they wouldn't arrest her. I'm okay with that. It was a scam. She got scammed on Craigslist. And then she had the nerve to ask me, how do I get my money back? I don't know. Call the scammer. Ask them to send you money back. So that's one of our worst. I know there's worse out there, and we've had those, but that's another day, I guess. But
what was NOPD trying to circumvent with the 2 days and 3 days that they were questioning you?
They were basically trying to circumvent that in the state of Louisiana, 10 days or more, you're an occupant. That becomes a civil case, and you actually have to file eviction. So that was my belief. And he never said that, but that was my belief, is that he was trying to see how many days has this person really been occupying the property, and did I illegally put their stuff out? And when he found out it had only been 2 days, that kind of ended it for him, so.
Appreciate the story, man.
Yeah.
Questions from the audience?
You are a 20-year-old.